So things happen. You know that tree that falls and no one tweets it so we don't know that it really fell? That's how we make these things that happen be about us. Everything we care about is somehow comes back to being about us. So I'm going to tell you some stories about me. I'm going to show you some pictures, some videos, and you're going to listen and you're going to make it about you. That's how we make things about us. So I want to start with Go, not the language, the game. So here are the rules of Go from the American Go Association. And do you have them all? The AGA decided to simplify things, and they simplified it into 3 rules. Black goes first, you take turns placing a single stone, and your goal is to surround territory. I think it's simple. It's easier than chess. It's simple, but it's not easy. As you know, it was very hard to write a computer program that could play Go at even the most rudimentary level. So here's a very simple example. Let's suppose that black goes here. See those lines coming out of that stone? These spots are called black's liberties. And if white goes in those 2 spots, white surrounds black, black comes off the board. Now, black would never play there because it only has 2 liberties. But if black played there, then white might play here. And now black only has 1 liberty. And black might be tempted to react. We do this all the time. We're reading Twitter. Someone writes something we think is stupid. And so we respond and we think to ourselves, or we're in our office and we get email to the whole group. Maybe it's support complaining about something we did. And we think, I know. So there's all these times we react, we don't stop, we don't think, we don't act instead of reacting. And in the case of Go, I feel threatened. I've only got 1 liberty, and I think I've got to save that stone, and so I play here. Now, even the most beginning Go player would at this point realize there's trouble, but it's often true that as you learn Go, you get focused on these little battles and you lose sight of the whole board. And so white plays here. And black says, uh-oh, now I might lose 2 stones because these 2 stones only have 1 liberty right below the black stones, and so I'll play here. I've got to save those stones. This is my only move. And white goes, really? Is this guy an idiot? And it goes on like this until we get to the bottom of the board, and black says, well, I guess I don't have a choice now, and it plays there. He only has 1 liberty. It finally dawns on him, he's going to lose everything. Not that single stone that he started with, but this is the only move left to him, and even that doesn't protect him because that stone, there's still only 1 place, and white can take all of the stones, so white plays there, and bye-bye. All because of that first stone. All because we tried to save something that only wasn't worth saving. It was something that couldn't be saved. And by doing it, we lost so much more than we had to. So black has learned his lesson, not really, he still played in the corner. White has played next to him. Black says, aha, that's my only liberty. I'm gonna lose this one. Let me play somewhere else. Let me find a better move. White now doesn't react well. White should play somewhere else too, because it can always come back and take that 1 stone, but white says, bird in hand. I'm going to take this stone. And black says, well, that was me a minute ago. I can't complain, but I'm going to move here. And if you look at this board, even not knowing Go that much, you can see that white controls very little, just that 1 stone it's taken. Not only does black seem to be claiming that top piece, but it's kind of hemming in white as well. And so we've kind of added another rule to those 3 from the American Go Association. Black goes first. We take turns placing 1 stone. We surround territory. And the new rule is that we make the biggest move on the board. And as I learn go, people in my local club keep saying that to me. Is that the biggest move on the board? Like it means something to me. But I nod wisely, and I make another bad move. Things happen. A week and a half ago, Notre Dame caught on fire. And people all over the world said, this isn't about Notre Dame. Somehow, this is about me. And they posted pictures of their last visit to Notre Dame. They posted stories about how they'd never get to visit Notre Dame, or their next visit won't be as happy to Paris. And so, here's my last visit to Notre Dame. Thank you. This was in January. It was beautiful. Years ago, I went there with my wife. There she is. Say hi, Kimmy. My first visit to Notre Dame, not that you asked, was 1974 with my family. 1974? Are you that old? Uh-huh. And I remember my dad taking us up one of the towers, and we saw gargoyles, and it was an awesome visit. And I think of this story a week and a half ago as Notre Dame burned, because earlier that day, my dad died. My dad was a philosopher, by which I don't mean a barista at Starbucks. He was a professional philosopher. He was a college professor. But most of all, he was my dad. And this is a picture of him with my youngest daughter, Elena. Not in awe. And my older daughter, Maggie, back when she used to be cute. These pictures are actually pictures that Maggie had framed and brought into my dad's room at the nursing home about a year ago so that he could see pictures of his grandkids. And over that year, he got worse and worse. He could barely speak for a while, then he couldn't speak at all. We don't know how much he understood. Couldn't take care of himself. And about a month ago, I'm riding out there with Maggie, and Maggie says, it's really sad that Papa's dying, but he's not him anymore. He's not able to do the things that were important to him anymore. It's time for us. Are we keeping him alive for us, not for him? Now, she wasn't 9 at the time. She's 22. This is a picture of Maggie on her 21st birthday, having what she assures me was her first alcoholic beverage. But I took this story about my father and I made it about me. And I asked her, how old am I going to be when you're ready to let me go? And that's not so academic. Here's a picture of Maggie and Kim from 3 years ago. And a week after this picture, Maggie and I were among friends in a hospital deciding to turn Kim's life support off. And Kim had given us an incredible gift. Kim had been very clear in writing how I want to live, and more importantly, how I want to die. And that gift was something special because it meant that moment when I'm deciding about taking my wife off of life support, it wasn't about me. It was about her. And when I look at my dad and think of who he was, this is his other grandchild, he wasn't him anymore. There's this Kushner quote that nobody ever said on their deathbed, I wish I'd spent more time in the office, and we need to make this about us. It's not about the person dying. They're dying. It's about us. And the question is, what do we think at their deathbed, or at their grave, or at the news of their death? How does it affect us? We need a light moment, don't we? Here's a picture of my daughter turning in her thesis yesterday. She's going to graduate next month. She posted this on Facebook, and I was so happy. I congratulated her for the thesis. Do you know that half of the posts were on her yellow boots instead? The internet is just a scary place. This is my favorite picture of Kim and me. We're in Thessaloniki, Greece, and this picture, I think, captures our life together, our marriage better than any other picture. I'm really lucky. I get to travel so many places. And in the last years of her life, she came with me a lot. The last conference she ever came to was NSNorth in Toronto. And this is not too much before that. And so we would get to these fantastic places. We get to the edge of the water, but it was Kim that would get us to walk in. It was Kim that would say, let's get our feet wet. And that partnership was just awesome. You know, I'd get invited somewhere to teach for a week, and maybe she could come with me, but at the end of the day, she'd say, let's sit and let's have a glass of wine. So here we are in Amsterdam, and there's another one of my favorite pictures of us together. You say, wait a minute, I only see one person, but I'm the one taking this picture. And I think I'm very much in this picture. It's a couple that's so comfortable with each other and so relaxed at the end of the day. It's a picture with one person in it, and yet to me it's a picture with two people in it. And at the end of your day, is this what you're doing? Or you're more like most of us where we're doing this? You can tell we're relaxed because our feet are up, but we've got our laptop in our lap and we're learning from somebody on the screen about some technique in Swift. That's not this. In fact, after many years of working on it, here's what my office looks like at home. So let's think about work. I don't know what your methodology is at work. Maybe you guys use this methodology, or maybe you use this. Really? And you end up with tasks to do. And maybe you come to reality and say, wait a minute, we start each day with a stand-up meeting. You've seen my stand-up meeting. You start with a stand-up meeting, so you're not going to do anything in this block. And then you get a call from your manager says, you know, we need to chat, so I need some time from you Thursday. And so those go away. And the product manager says, you know, I need a demo from you on Friday. And actually, you better be ready for that demo, so take some time and practice. And then your division head says, you guys have been so productive, we're going to have an all hands and celebrate together, and it's mandatory. And then there's the little interruptions, those interruptions all day long, where someone walks into your office and they say, I just need you for a minute. And the research says for that minute, it's going to take you 23 minutes to recover. Even if it's you interrupting yourself for a minute, I'm just going to check Twitter for a minute. 23 minutes to recover. We're built to do one thing at a time. So I spend a lot of my time writing, and the best way to get good at writing is to make sure you edit what you write. And after a while, you learn you cannot do both at the same time. When you write, you have to keep producing. You can't write a sentence and then, oh, I didn't like how that sounds, I'm going to move this. You got to keep writing. You've got to separate the time that you're writing from your editing. And some people like to come in and write first thing, and then they edit in the afternoon. And other people like to take what they wrote yesterday and edit it so they get themselves right to that point where they can continue and pick up their writing. Whatever you do, protect those blocks. Those are the blocks that you work. Now, what you may not notice is there's a lot of time around those blocks. In fact, it might be more clear if I set them off like this. And this is huge. You've got focus blocks, you've got unfocused blocks. There is no in between. You are either doing something or you are not doing something. And that is one of the biggest moves on the board. When you confuse that time, and you don't really focus when you're supposed to focus, and you don't really relax when you're supposed to relax, it harms you. The great mathematician Littlewood wrote about this years and years ago. He says, either work all out or rest completely, because you know that time where you go, oh, I'm not getting anything done. I'm going to go for a walk. And you spend that whole walk thinking, oh, I can't do this. I'm just not smart enough. I don't know how to. You're wasting your time. He says, while you're not working, nothing's being done, and you're not relaxing, so you don't come back feeling rested. You didn't get anything done. Be there. Wherever you are, be there. So on the way to Yosemite, if you've been, it's a long drive. And maybe you stop for gas, and maybe it's St. Patrick's Day, so you make your wife pose with the bear. But you're still more than an hour from the park at this last gas station. And you get to Yosemite, and you're in such a rush to get to the famous things that maybe you forget to look around and notice that it's already beautiful. Take the time, get out of the car. Look up. Keep looking up. Look at these things that don't have names, aren't famous. Walk down to the creek and look around it and be glad that there's water running through it. And now you get to something you can name. Wherever you are, be there. Don't be in the car looking out and going, yeah, that was the desktop for one of the Mac releases. So you get to the Yosemite Lodge and we check in and we walk down to the falls and we noticed, you think, this stinks. I'm at the foot of Yosemite Falls and I can't tweet it. Am I really here? I'm at the Mona Lisa. Kim loved the Mona Lisa. So I took a picture of her with the Mona Lisa, and then I stepped back and I looked at everybody else there, and I noticed this is the only guy looking at the Mona Lisa. And yet it turns out he's just lining up his selfie. So, this is my favorite family picture. Elena in my lap, Maggie over my back. Every morning I would get up early and take my laptop and go down and work. Kim would go make coffee. And then the kids would come down and I'd put my laptop down and they'd climb all over me and we'd have a little moment before they went to school. Come on, tell me that's not. Look at that. Now, I said it's a picture of my family because look at the girls. They're looking at their mother. They're looking at the photographer. Kim is very much in this picture, even though she's not. They're both performing for her. Elena never met a camera she didn't like. What I like best about this shot, though, is her mother can't take her eyes off her. Kim was standing next to her with her eyes on Elena. Elena's 6 in this picture. It's the father-daughter Girl Scout dance. Didn't I have work I had to turn in? Yep. Didn't I have a deadline? Uh-huh. But what's more important than taking your daughter to the father-daughter Girl Scout dance? You need to know what is important to you, for whom you are doing it, and why. And it helps you make all sorts of decisions. But we get confused. We think this is what we do. This is not what we do. We are not in the process of writing code. What we do is not our tasks. Your purpose is important for you to figure out. When Jean McDonald started App Camp for Girls, she spent all of her time raising money, getting devices, getting curriculum, hiring staff, but her purpose was inspiring young women by introducing them to working women developers. That was her purpose. When Ken talked about this keyboard that he worked on, he wasn't writing a keyboard and designing a keyboard. He was creating something that enabled you to enter events into your calendar, to enter people into your contacts, to figure out where you wanted to go by typing the address into Maps. The keyboard was what he was working on, but he was working on something that you use, something important to you. When Ben Sherman worked on the iOS app for 5 calls, he spent his day on table views and parsing JSON. But that's not his purpose. His purpose was involving people in democracy, connecting us to our representatives. So you figure out what's important to you. Not the code that you write, but why you're writing it. And you figure out your for whom. This is my for whom. And so when as a young math professor, I couldn't find a job in the area and I would have to move my kids away from their grandparents, it was very easy to say, I can do something else. When big companies said we don't allow remote working, it was very easy for me to say, well, they're staying near their grandparents, I can do something else for someone else. Once you know the who, makes it very easy. So think a moment, who are the most important people in your life? Who are the people that you make these kind of decisions for? I hope you included yourself in that. He did. It turns out this is one of those areas where we're uncomfortable making it about me, deciding that we're worth it. I had a pinched nerve back in the fall, and it hurt. I couldn't sleep for months. And so after a couple months of this, I went to see my doctor, who I just love. And he said, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you come in sooner?" I said, "Well, because every time I come in, you tell me, yeah, most things just heal on their own." Which is how you know an honest doctor, right? And he said, "Yes, but this is serious." I said, "Well, the other thing is every time I come in for something, you tell me." He says, "I don't think I put it like that, but let's work." So he worked on what was wrong with me, and then he came back to my weight. And he said, "You won't lose it for you. Lose it for Maggie. She only has one parent left." That's a doctor. We don't do some stuff for ourselves. Everything counts. I'm a stress eater. I'm a pleasure eater too, but I'm a stress eater. And so Kim would walk into the kitchen and see me eating like a handful of pretzels and say, "Do you want that? Or are you just aggravated because you just talked to your mother?" If you want it, go ahead and eat it. If it's because of your mother, this isn't going to help. Everything counts. So Kim and I were in the Netherlands years ago, and we went to the Dutch flower auctions. And the Dutch flower auctions are incredible because they have these lots of flowers, and they have a clock set to 1 minute. And every second, the price of the flowers goes down. So you have to make a decision. And every second you say, am I going to buy it, or am I going to wait till the price goes down? But there's other people that could buy it out from under you. And it's not like you're bidding it up. The price goes down. And at the end of that minute, if no one buys, and this was the moment we just couldn't believe, they take this whole lot of flowers and they shovel it into the incinerator. It's gone. That minute is never to be lived again. I know, I thought they did it just for us as a metaphor. So we've talked about a lot of things you can do. And of course, it's not easy. So you can adopt it in layers, like pasta. Work with me on this. When you're learning to cook, you're not a very good cook maybe, you start with dry pasta. You take it out of the box, you put it in salted boiling water. What could be easier? Maybe you take out sauce from a can or a jar. I'm not judging you. And that's where you start. And then you decide you're an adult. And maybe you're at the store and they're selling fresh pasta. And so you get the fresh pasta. And now instead of sauce from a jar, maybe you'll saute onions first. Cut up some vegetables, put it together. And then you get ridiculous and you decide to make your own. You look it up, it's simple. It's flour, it's water, sometimes it's eggs, sometimes it's not. I'm gonna make my own. What could be hard about this? I wanna show you how simple it is. 2 blocks away from here, this guy makes pasta. Check this out. That's all there is to it. Right? So you think of your purpose, you think what's important to you, for whom and why, and you're mostly there. Imagine if I thought, well, I'm working till 10 tonight, I'm gonna miss this dance. What if I hadn't taken my 6-year-old daughter to the father-daughter Girl Scout dance? I did, and I have no regrets. Remember, no one lies on their deathbed thinking I should have worked more. But when someone we love dies, we think of the time that we could have, the time that we should have spent with them. A week and a half after this picture was taken, Elena was dead. She never turned 7. This year she would have turned 20. And her mom, next to her, looking at her, well, you know she died 3 years ago, and she's right now next to Elena, still watching over her. At Kim's funeral, I offered 2 thoughts. Live each day as if it's your last, and live each day as if it isn't. Kim and I lived with each other as each other's most important for whom. And because of that, I have no regrets. Thank you.